For other videos and problems like this for data structures, you can find them in my studies. Link is in the description box below. A linked list is just a link of boxes. Now, these boxes, we call them nodes. So nodes are just a box that contain two things: the item that we want the node to hold and a pointer that we call next that's going to point to another node. Now, this object does not exist in Java yet, so let's actually create it. How do we create our own objects or our own abstract data types? By creating a class. So here we have private static class node with a capital N. So we're creating an object called node, and it's private because we don't want people having access to this node. So remember, this is just the blueprint. We're describing what we want the node to look like. We're not creating anything yet. So the node is going to contain a private variable called item, and that item is going to be of data type string, and so will all of our data structures up until later will be strings. And it will also contain a variable called next that's going to refer to another object with data type node. So in other words, this is describing a node, which is a box that's going to contain an item that refers to a string, and it's going to have a next variable that is going to refer to the next node. Now, we said that a linked list is just linking these nodes together, but a linked list also doesn't exist in our Java world yet, so let's go ahead and create it. We're going to do public static class linked list. We're creating our object, our data structure linked list, and we want it to be public because we want people to have access to this data structure. Just like in ComSci 111, we had access to the array list data structure, so we want other people to have access to the linked list data structure, which is why we make it public as opposed to when we made the node object private, because we don't want people accessing the node. Now, the first thing that we do for our linked list is we create a variable called first, and it's going to refer to a data type node. And we want it to be private because we don't want people messing around with this. And we're just going to set it equal to null. So right now we have a variable called first that is supposed to be a data type node, and it is, but right now it's just referring to null, to nothing. We want to actually have nodes linked together. So if a user wants to add something to their linked list, we have to have a method for them to do so. So we're going to create a method called addFirst. It's going to return nothing, so void. And it's going to be public because we want the user to have access to this method. We want them to be able to use it. Now the user is going to put in the item that they want their node to contain, and that item is going to be of data type string. So let's say the user runs addFirst and then A. So the item that they want added to their linked list is A. What do we want to happen? Well, first we want to create a node that's going to hold that item. So we're going to call this the temporary node. So we're just creating a variable that is of data type node, and we're going to construct the node. So we're going to say new node, and it's going to create a node with an item of data type string and a next that's going to refer or point to another node. Then we want to take this temporary node, take its item, and set it equal to the item that the user wants. So if the user said addFirst A, then the item is A, so therefore we're taking this and we're making it A. But the problem is this is all we did, and this is not really a linked list, and it's also pointing to nothing right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this temporary node to point to the first node. So the idea is if this is already part of our linked list, which it is, then what we can do is we can set this temporary node and have it point to the first variable that just refers to null. So we're going to take our temporary variable, we're going to take its next pointer, and we're going to set it to refer to the first, which refers to null. So in other words, this is going to point to first. But first is no longer our first. This is now our first node. So now we want to take our first node and set it equal to our temporary node. So what that does is make this first, and then this no longer is first, but this is still referring to what first was referring to, which is null. And that is how we come up with our beautiful linked list here. Now, what if I did addFirst B? addFirst B would take in B, it would create a temporary node. So again, it's going to create a variable called temp right here, and it's going to give a data type node, and it's going to refer to a new node that's going to hold an item and a next that's referring to another node. Right now, it's pointing to nothing. We're going to take this temporary node, have its item be equal to the item that the user put in, which is B. So this turns to B. And then we're going to take this temporary node's next and have it point to first, but first is now this one. First refers to this node A. So this is really just taking here, and now we're pointing to first. But then this is our linked list. In our linked list, this is now the first. So we're going to have to set first to now refer to the temporary node. So now we have first referring to the temporary node, and now there's nothing referring to this node. Let's try one more. Let's do addFirst C. So again, if this is addFirst C, it's going to create a temporary node. It's going to access that temporary node's item and change it equal to whatever the user said, which was C. Then it's going to take the temporary node's next and have it point to the first, which is now referring to this node. So this goes here and starts pointing to this. And then finally, we take the first variable, which is referring to this node, and have it equal to whatever this temporary variable is referring to, which is this node. So now this refers to this node, and now this is no longer our first, but this is. So notice the pattern that we only ever have access to our first node. We don't have access to these directly, but there is a way to do that. They are linked for a reason. Let's say that I want to take the first node and change it from C to, let's say, D. Then what I can do is I can access the first node dot item and set it equal to D. So I'm really taking the first variable, and this variable refers to this node. I'm accessing that node's item, and I'm changing it to, say, D. So this C is going to change to D now. But what if I want to change this to a C? If I only ever have access to the first node, how in the world can I be like, third node dot item equals C? No, we can't do that. What we can do, however, is use the fact that we have pointer. So we're saying first, we're taking this variable that refers to the first node, and we're going to take its next. So we're going to say dot next. Its dot next refers to this node, but we want to get to this node, so guess what we have to do? We have to take this nodes, which is this one, dot next to get to this one. So this dot next actually refers to this node. So we're going to have to do another next. And then finally, we're here in our third node in our linked list. And what was the goal? It was to change this A to a C. So we're taking this node's item right here, and we're just going to set that equal to a C. And if I wanted to change this into an A, then I would have just stopped here. I would have gone to first, which refers to this node, gone to its next, which refers to the node that I want to change, and then I would have just been like dot item right here. I would have accessed its item box and just simply changed it to an A, and that's it. So just to be clear, this variable first will always be referring to the last node that we added, because every time we want to add a node, we create a temporary node, and so then we set the first variable to be equal to whatever the temporary node is referring to. But what if we want to remove a node? Well, then that's another method that we have to do. So we're going to say public because we want users to have access to this method. It's going to return a string because we actually want to return to the users which item we deleted, just for confirmation, and we're going to call it deleteFirst. Now, why do I say addFirst and deleteFirst? Why not just add and delete? Because I want you to understand that we can only ever operate on the first node. So when we add a node, it's going to become the first one on our list. And when we delete a node, it's going to be the one that's first on our list by default. So when we say deleteFirst, what do we want to happen? Well, first of all, let's actually store the item. So we're going to create string variable item, and it's going to be equal to the first dot item. Why first? Because that's the only variable we can delete. If we want to delete the first node in our linked list, what's another way to say that? Well, what else happens when we delete this? Well, then this becomes our first node. So maybe we can say this variable first is now going to refer to not this node, but whatever this node is pointing to, which is this one, because that is the one that we want to become our first. So what we can do is we can take our first and have our first variable refer to whatever the first one right now, which is this one, is pointing to. So if I just run this, this is just going to store the item D for me right here. And it's going to have this now point to whatever this is pointing to. So it's going to have this point to this now. So then, in other words, there's nothing pointing to this one. And so because there's nothing pointing to it, then it's no longer part of our linked list. It doesn't mean we deleted it, like literally, because it's still somewhere in memory, but there's nothing pointing to it. So it's no longer part of our linked list. And then finally, we just want to return what we deleted, and that's going to be D. So now we have our first variable is going to point to what was the next one, and now this becomes our first. Now, just to be clear, I wanted to show you the actual main method. So here we have public static void main. So we want to create our list, and we're going to do data type string because we want it to be a linked list of strings, and we're going to construct it so it's going to be new, and then we're going to use our linked list. And so right now we just have first variable that is just referring to null. That's all we have in our linked list right now. And then we can take my list, and then to add A, that's really what we would have done. And then again, my list. To add B, we would have just done that. And to add C, we would have just done my list, addFirst C. And it would have looked like that, and that would have created this linked list right here. Now, these are our main methods, our addFirst and deleteFirst, but there are some other ones. They're super easy. Don't worry, we'll talk about them in another video. I'll see you in the next.